This is number 4 story of our story of Easter. And if you remember yesterday, they came and they got Jesus and they took him away. And remember, Judas kissed him. And when he kissed him, they all knew that that was the one they wanted to arrest. And remember that the disciples ran away. We compared that to sheep running away like scattering all over the place. Now let's see what happens next in the story. When Jesus was taken to the high priest's house, where all the chief priests, the elders, and the teachers of the law were gathering, Peter followed from a distance and went into the courtyard of the high priest's house. If you remember right now, Jesus told Peter that he was going to deny him. Let's see what happens. There he sat down with the guards, and he kept himself warm by the fire. The chief priest and the whole council tried to find some evidence against Jesus in order to put him to death, but they could not find any. Many witnesses told lies about Jesus, but their stories did not all agree. When some men stood up and told this lie against Jesus, "We heard him say, 'I'm going to tear down the temple which man has made, and after 3 days I will build one that is not made by men.'" Not even they, however, could make their stories agree. So they're all telling different stories about Jesus, but none of them agree with each other, so they don't have enough evidence. Now let's see what happens to Peter. Peter was still down at the courtyard when one of the high priest's servant girls came by and saw him. When she saw Peter warming himself at the fire, she looked straight at him and she said, You too were one of the people that was with Jesus of Nazareth." But Peter denied it. I don't know. I don't understand what you're talking about," he answered, and he went out into the passageway. And just then, a rooster crowed the first time. So he's denied him once. The servant girl saw him there and began to repeat to the bystanders, He is one of them. He is one of them. He was with Jesus." But Peter denied it again. A little while later, the bystanders accused Jesus again. "You can't deny that you're one of them. And you can't, because you too are from Galilee." Then Peter said, remember this is the 3rd time, "I swear that I'm telling the truth. May God punish me if I am not. I do not know the man that you were talking about." And just then a rooster crowed a 2nd time. And Peter remembered how Jesus had said, "Before the rooster crows 2 times, you're going to say 3 times that you do not know me." And then Peter broke down and cried. That's a sad part to me, because Peter loved Jesus, but Peter still made mistakes. Let's see what happens next. Early in the morning, the chief priests met hurriedly with the elders, the teachers of the law, and the whole council, and made their plans against him. They were going to put Jesus to death. They put him in chains. They led him away, and they handed him over to Pilate. Pilate questioned him and said, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "So you say." The chief priests were accusing Jesus of many things, so Pilate questioned him again. "Aren't you going to answer? Listen to all their accusations." And then at that time, Jesus refused to say a word, and Pilate was amazed. This is the next part. This is a really sad part. At every Passover festival, Pilate was in the habit of setting free one prisoner that the people asked for. At that time, there was a man named Barabbas. Say that with me, Barabbas. He was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder in the riot. So Barabbas was in jail, and Barabbas was a murderer. When the crowd gathered and began to ask Pilate for his usual favor, he asked them, "Do you want me to set free for you Jesus, the King of the Jews?" He knew very well that the chief priest had handed Jesus over to him because they were jealous. They did not like it that Jesus was getting all this attention. But the chief priest stirred up the crowd and began asking, instead of that, set Barabbas free." So Pilate again spoke to the crowd. "What are you saying? Do you want me to set Barabbas free, Do you want me to set the one you call the King of the Jews free, Jesus? And then they started saying, Barabbas, Barabbas, Barabbas. They were telling him to set Barabbas free. And he said, what about Jesus? Then they started to yell this out, crucify him, crucify him, crucify him. But Pilate said, but what crime has he committed? They all shouted to the leader, crucify him. Pilate wanted to please the crowd, so he set Barabbas free for them. And then he had Jesus whipped and handed over to be crucified. The soldiers took Jesus inside to the courtyard of the governor's palace and called together the rest of the company. They put a purple robe on Jesus. They made a crown out of thorny branches and put it on his head. And then they began to salute him. Long live the King of the Jews. They are being very sarcastic. They are being ugly to him. They beat him over the head with a stick. They spat on him, which means they spit on him. They fell on their knees and they bowed down to him. Were they bowing down to him because they wanted to honor him? No, they were being ugly. They were making fun of him. And when they had finished making fun of him, they took off the purple robe and they put his own clothes back on him. And then they led him out to crucify him. That's one of the saddest chapters in the Bible to me. And I'm just going to sing a little bit of this before we close today. I went to Israel several times and I saw the place where we think that Jesus was crucified. It was way up on a hill, and they put him way up on the hill so anybody that came by that place could see what would happen to you if you disagreed. And Jesus was right there in the middle. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. But I love that old cross where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. But I'll cherish the old rugged cross when my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown, for that old rugged cross, so despised by the world, has a wondrous attraction to me. For a dear Lamb of God left his glory above to shine on dark Calvary. And so I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it one day for a crown. That song is called The Old Rugged Cross. Tomorrow, in our next part of the story, Jesus is going to be hung on the cross and die. Remember, he's hanging on the cross for a reason. He's not going there for just any reason. He is going there to save his children, to save us from going down there one day. He wants to save us because if we believe in him, he has come in our place to forgive us of our sins. So tomorrow, be ready for a sad story, but the story does not end there. See you tomorrow.